from our newsroom. So, Kaya, what are the main findings here? This survey was done by the Gauteng City Region Observatory, right? What did they find?
Well, absolutely, Tila says it's quite a lot of findings that really came out. And as you know, that Gauteng finds itself in a very unique position in South Africa, high levels of migration, domestic migration, but also you have a lot of people coming outside of the country. So, for example, when you look at the issue of satisfaction in as far as service delivery is concerned, a lot of residents in some municipalities, for example, are really outspoken about the lack of, proper provision of water. As much as 90% of the province is receiving piped water, but in terms of the reliability of that particular service, that's another major concern. The issue of crime as well, quite a number of people in Gauteng, they're still raising concern. It's about 32%, but also about 18% of people are very much concerned about lack of jobs. So that's a national crisis. And we know that Gauteng contributes about 35% in South Africa's GDP and about 6% in Africa's, economic contribution. So those are some of the main issues that really came out. But this is a very important survey, once again, to Lassiz, especially in terms of policy making for the province, to be able to look at the loopholes in terms of policy making for the policymakers, to review some of the mechanisms. And it was so interesting to Lassiz, I should mention this. Premier of Gauteng, David Makura, said this survey will not gather a dust. So they'll make sure that whatever the findings that are coming out, everything is implemented to a T.
Yeah, and one of the interesting findings has to do with how race continues to be a determiner of, the quality of life that a person is likely to lead in Gauteng. Explain that to us.
Well, it's a very perennial and a very historical issue here in South Africa, Tula, very structural in its nature. So if you reside in Sandton, your life is very much likely to be very better in comparison to someone who lives in a certain informal settlement. And so predominantly, when you look at the issue of inequality in South Africa, it's very much skewed in terms of race. You still have one race that is very much on the upper level in comparison to others. So if you're African, you're likely to live under very, very dire situation. But of course, as much as there has been a steady progress achieved over the years, because that's another acknowledgement that the survey is really pointing out quite succinctly. It says, as much as there has been steady progress, but there are some areas of concern that really remains of major concern. Tula says you are speaking about Ekurhuleni municipality. When you look at the survey itself, when you're breaking it down, this is one of the municipalities that continues to receive a lot of bad publicity. But also the residents were very outspoken about the bad services that they are subjected to, especially in as far as the issue of waste removal is concerned. And that's another point that the Premier was highlighting when they were releasing the actual survey, when he was saying the province has actually implemented certain measures where they are assisting this particular municipality to revive itself. But otherwise, when you look at other municipalities in Gauteng, you look at Merafong, you look at Lesedi and others, there seems to be quite a very widespread and a very overwhelming sense of improvement.
So a few weeks ago, the Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, stirred the hornet's nest talking about the user pay principle, which, resuscitated this age-old debate around the e-tolls. But this survey has a finding that will surprise many.
Well, absolutely, Tila says it's absolutely bizarre because we know there has been quite a strong disapproval. It's about 30% of people who are actually observant and making sure that they pay for e-tolls. But oddly enough, this particular survey is saying a lot of people in Gauteng, they're now keen. So now there is a change, a very radical change of thought, which is very interesting because when I tried to probe the actual designers or the people who were behind this particular survey, they were like, look, it's something that came out. They were roaming around the streets of Gauteng. They spoke to about 24,000 people. So that was an overwhelming opinion that came out.
Yeah, in fact, it says about 10% more people are now willing to pay for e-tolls than they did in 2015. And you can't criticize the survey and say it was really a small sample. I mean, 24,000 people in Gauteng. Kailihle Khumalo, thank you so much for that update on the Quality of Life survey that has been done here in the province of Gauteng. And